Welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast number 12. Today we're going to discuss a combination of things and going to be answering a few requests. A few weeks ago I was asking for a top 5 type podcast and what you guys were interested in learning. And one of the requests was top 5 things you can learn from losing. And I guess it's more specifically towards competing, and that's what we're going to go for here. And then I had another request asking about, talking about sportsmanship when you do compete. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down into some specifics. I'm going to give you some examples that I have seen firsthand being a promoter, a competitor, or a judge throughout all the years I've been involved, and try to summarize it. So if I get a little offbeat or just off track, just bear with me because there is a point that I'm going to try to make. And these podcasts, as you know, are not scripted. I may jot down a few notes, just, key points to remind myself, but there's really no cheat sheet here. So to the point, competing, like I've always said, can bring out the best and can bring out the worst out of people. We know that. And it really depends on our motive to competing. I think we can break down as there are 3 different types of people who enter bodybuilding shows. And again, bodybuilding meaning all divisions. So you take the first person. The first person typically is the one that's just doing it for themselves. They don't care about placement. They are just using the contest as a goal to build those habits up, to step on stage, and it's a celebration. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's not simple, but it's pretty straightforward that they are just doing it for themselves. They don't give a shit about anything else, but they reached the goal. They're celebrating. If they get a trophy or not, they don't care. So that's person number 1. Person number 2 is someone that really doesn't care, again, too much, but is a little competitive. Typically that person might be competing for a while, or they had a break, and they're a little competitive, because they want to look better from the show to show that they're doing a little bit more experienced. Could be. So it's like, a little bit of both, a little competitive edge and a little bit of like, I don't care what happens. And then you can see where I'm going. The third type of person, total competitor, wants to win, doesn't really care how or what they do, how to reach it. I get it. That person, it's about winning. Now, what their motive is it really for them or to show off? That's a big question, and that's for another day. So you have 3 different types of people, okay? And I'm not using politics as an example, but to the left, you have the person that is doing it you versus you, doesn't care if they come home with hardware or not. All the way to the right, the super competitive person, okay? That they're driven by placements. And the podcast is really going to be focusing on that person, because they're driven, they're motivated, they want to place better and better, and, that is a sign of their progress. And then you have the middle, a little bit of both. Now, I believe that we start off, it could be one of the 3, but typically you're going to lean a little bit more to the left or lean a little bit more to the right. And with the right attitude, the pendulum's going to swing towards the middle. So, for example, if you have that person that doesn't care about the placement, typically, if they do continue on that journey and they do want to compete, they're going to start, say, hey, you know what? I do want to look better show to show. I do want to, it'd be cool to come home with a trophy. And that is awesome. I think that's really what it's about, because they're pressing to get better. But since they started off on the left, they're not going to freak out as much. They're not going to freak out if they don't get a better placement. They usually have a better understanding. Now, if you're all the way to the right, being that super competitive person, again, with the right mindset over time and maybe losing some of these shows and you handle it well, you're going to start, that pendulum's going to go towards the middle. Again, you'll be like, hey, you know what? I get it now. I can't control everything. Spoiler alert. So, I've seen all three, and I've seen most of them go towards the middle, and sometimes I've seen the far left and the far right, they compete once, and the far left, they compete once because they reached their goal, and they're like, yeah, I did it, I'm done, Or if to the far right, they're super competitive, they're not happy with their placement, even though they look fantastic, and they say, screw it, I'm not going to do this again. So what I'm going to talk about now is my experiences more so with that person to the far right, because I was once this person, so it's easy to talk about. What I always tell people who get caught up in placements is that bodybuilding competitions are not like a normal sport or an athletic event. There is no offense and there is no defense. So you cannot control your performance while you're on stage as if you were to play tennis or if you were to play football or whatever. If there's no one opposing you physically or with skills. So to get so freaked out and to worry about what other people are doing, to worry about how the judges are going to look at you is really a waste of time. I mean, I can end the podcast now when it comes to that, with the sportsmanship, because a lot of times these people don't have good sportsmanship. They get so caught up in it. And again, I've seen it over and over again. So backpedaling a little bit, you cannot control the outcome of the event. I talked about in one of my podcasts that bodybuilding is awesome because you can control everything. You can control your diet, your weight training, your posing, getting a good tan. You can control your posing on stage, your stage presence, your composure, but how you are judged, you cannot control. So you have to learn to let go. You have to succumb to it. Be like, all right, I'm done. Here it is. I'm doing all my hard work, showing it off. Judge me, how I look, and that's it. You can't get so freaked out. Now, going back about some life experiences, and it's going to tie into this little podcast a little bit more. When I first started competing, I was young, and I was super competitive because I was, a baseball athlete, played in college, semi-pro, all that good stuff. So I needed another outlet. Besides, I love lifting and getting big and all that stuff. So really the first couple shows, it really didn't matter about placements. But then I saw that I was getting better and, placements were important and I was blessed. I was winning a lot. So it really didn't have an effect on me. But again, it was about looking better. But then it came to a point where after winning my pro card, I did 2 pro shows. The first pro show was just an experience. I finished middle of the pack, and I really didn't care. I mean, I was close to the couple people. It didn't bother me. Second pro show, I did really well again. I won my division, the short class or the lightweight class. My third pro show was a different story. It was probably the hardest preps, and I think I put more pressure on myself. And I came in third out of 8 or 9 guys, which was good, but I was visibly upset. And the reason why I knew that was not because I remember it so much, it's because when I got pictures back, I was like, oh man, it's embarrassing. I was embarrassed because a lot of my pictures I had a face like, oh my God, what happened? I finished third. I should have placed first. It was a hard pill to swallow. And this is an example that I use in my posing classes a lot because how you reflect, how you look on stage is how everyone else is going to see you. And these judges are going to see you again. So you need to have good composure if you're not happy with your placement. That's what I'm saying. If you're that competitive person, when you're on stage, you have to show composure even if you're not happy with your placement, because you have to understand, again, You can't control who's going to show up. So that's my example that I learned firsthand, that composure is everything on stage. Now, I know I'm throwing stuff out there, so I'm hoping it's making sense. Now, going and discussing about learning how you can't control on who shows up, and the judges, obviously. Now, you can win a show and not look your greatest because maybe the other people didn't look so great. You can look fantastic and not finish well in placements only because the other competitors looked fantastic. So you see where I'm going here? You can't control on who else is going to show up. It's not you versus them in the sense of that you can play better defense or score more points. It's just a fact of life that other people can be better or other people can be worse, so therefore it could change your placement. So that's why how hard you work doesn't always resonate or dictate that placement, nor should that ever define you. Take the judges, for example. The judges may like a certain look, or maybe you're not fitting the criteria, or someone else just fit the look. I can go on and on about that. So you have to learn that if you're more of that on that right side competitive person, you gotta have composure. You gotta learn to let it go, and hopefully over time that you learn that pendulum will swing towards the middle. I, for one, with the last time I competed, I had no expectations. Yes, I was hard on myself. I wanted to do everything right because I wanted to redeem myself from my last contest prep, meaning physically, mentally, more importantly, and I did. I had no expectations. I was doing the Yorton Cup. I was doing the Pro Division. I was doing Classic Physique just because I wanted to, and I didn't care. I got second place out of 6, and I was super happy. But you know why I was happy? Because my journey was so much better. And even to this day, 4 whatever months out, my journey is a lot better because I didn't have a terrible rebound. I'm still feeling healthy. I'm feeling good. I didn't get crazy weight gains or anything like that. And it motivated me because I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to wait another 7 years to compete again. I'm going to I was going to compete this year until I learned I have to promote the men's show for the pros in the summer. But my goal is next summer, whatever, I'm going to hit the stage again because what I learned, I'm going to take forward and do a better job personally because I know I can. That's what happens over the years of competing, is that the pendulum starts swinging. Yes, I'm competitive with myself. Yeah, I do want to place, but that's not what it's all about. As a promoter, I have seen people lose their shit on stage, and it blows me away, when they don't have that sportsmanship, because not only I see it, the judges are seeing it, the audience is seeing it. So if you decide to do the same show or the same organization, it's a small community, man. I mean, people are going to remember that. And then to take it to the next level and to actually complain about shows, if you're not happy with your placement on social media, that's just, I don't get it, I can give you a few examples. I'm not going to name names, but the very first one, I like to hand out the trophies at my shows. I just like to see the competitors, to congratulate them, to say hello, say good job, thank you for doing the show. I mean, if you were handed, a trophy by me, you can attest to this. But I also like seeing the emotion on people's faces. And I can tell when someone's just happy. If they're finishing in 5th place, you hand them a trophy, they're ecstatic. They're just ecstatic to be on stage. That's that person all the way to the left that's just doing it for themselves. But sometimes you hand a trophy to someone and they might not be in 1st or 2nd or whatever. And actually, I had twice. One time, it was a woman, that's all I'm going to say, saying, I handed her the trophy, and she goes, "This is fucking bullshit." I was like, all right. I was embarrassed. I turned red, and, I walked away to give out the next trophy. And then a few years later, again, same thing. A couple of competitors, I handed them trophies. It was at the same show. And they threw me a look, and they said they couldn't believe it. They don't understand. They were mumbling. I heard it, and I was like, this is not cool. I mean, act professional. And then it so happened these same people were complaining about the show and placements, and I was like, come on, man. I mean, really? No, you just weren't in shape, or you need to have a better attitude. Another example, and I get this once in a while because I promote shows and I have clients in shows, that there was no sportsmanship, where someone was complaining about a month after the contest that I promoted that how one of my clients beat their clients. Well, they didn't even look at the results because their client came ahead of my client. And that's a true story. To summarize this podcast, because I see that I'm going on, and hoping that it does resonate and make some sense and give you some insight. But another thing that I've always felt is that when someone does a contest prep, the pressures of the dieting and the training and then the stress of competing and all that stuff, it really amplifies one's personality already. So if you're a little bit type A, you're a little bit competitive, it's going to get amplified. So what I'm trying to get across is take a step back once in a while, Be grateful that you're able to do this. Be grateful that you have an opportunity, a stage to show your stuff off, to show your friends and family to support you. Because with the wrong attitude, it can really dampen that whole journey of yours. And that's a damn shame because there's a lot of time lost just to freak out over, not winning a show or coming in a placement. We're all adults, and this is life. Sometimes we need to take, a bad placement as a lesson to improve yourself, not only physically, to make improvements, but also mentally, psychologically, to say, you know what, I looked like an asshole. Maybe I want to try again, but I want to enjoy the day itself, enjoy the camaraderie backstage. And, guys, I'm maybe dampening this, but truth of the matter, and I see it at my shows, at least, people are having a blast. I mean, if you ever did any of my shows, people are having a good time. I mean, the examples I gave are literally the only ones that I remember, and I've been promoting since 2006, and I lost track on how many shows. So it is a tiny, tiny little percentage. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you found it helpful as far as learning what to do, what not to do. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me at fitfranco@verizon.net with any questions or possible future podcasts. And if you're interested in coaching or any of my services, check out teamfrancobodybuilding.com. Thanks a lot, guys.